At the National Press Club today, the National Disability Insurance Scheme Forum, with three speakers: Peter Darch, West Australian Young Person of the Year for 2011, Dr Rhonda Galbally, the government's nominee for the scheme's advisory group, and Dr Paul Brock from the New South Wales Department of Education, on the theme Every Australian Counts, from the National Press Club in Canberra.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the National Press Club for today's National Australia Bank Address. In its landmark report earlier this year, the Productivity Commission described the current disability support system in what may be considered a gross understatement in Australia as very poor. It called for big changes, saying that the current system was underfunded, inefficient, unfair, simply did not work well. To quote from the report, one of the more disturbing observations that I read from just one of the many people who gave evidence, in this case an experienced psychiatrist, he said, "The regularity with which I meet parents with murder-suicide ideation, in other words, thoughts of murder-suicide, as they've been unable to find help for their disabled child, is both alarming but also a marker of the failure of coordination of any service. I also note that murder-suicide in these families is becoming a more recognised event." It was, in anyone's language, a damning indictment of the system. In response, the federal, state and territory governments have agreed to fast-track the Commission's recommendations to introduce a national disability insurance scheme. So that's a positive step in the right direction. But to discuss what is involved in that and whether it's a step far enough, I'd like to welcome our three panel members today. Dr Rhonda Galbally is to my left. She's well known to many of us for her lifelong efforts to improve the lot, to make Australia a more just and equitable country. She's helped establish a number of key organisations such as the Commission for the Future and more recently the National Preventative Health Agency. She's currently Chair of the Royal Women's Hospital, Chair of the National People with Disability and Carers Advisory Council and a member of the Advisory Committee for the establishment of the National Disability Insurance Scheme. To Rhonda's left, Peter Darch is the 2011 West Australian Young Australian of the Year. He became a quadriplegic in a swimming accident as a teen, and he now works as a counsellor and youth development officer with the Mandurah City Council. He's also become a passionate and respected advocate for others in the community less able to speak out for themselves. And to my right, Dr Paul Brock. Paul is Director of Learning and Development Research with the Department of Education and Communities in New South Wales. He's also an adjunct professor in the Faculty of Education and Social Work at the University of Sydney, to mention just a few of his numerous roles. Paul was diagnosed with motor neuron disease back in 1996, and he is Vice Patron of the Motor Neuron Disease Association in New South Wales. So to share their views, their thoughts on the proposed National Disability Insurance Scheme, please welcome our three speakers. Rhonda Galbally, if I could pass to you to perhaps get things rolling, to share your thoughts with us.
I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, the Ngunnawal people, and pay my respects to their elders past and present. 2 years ago, I came to the National Press Club to deliver a State of Union for people with a disability and their families in this nation. 2 years ago, I told of another world that few people knew existed, a world where Australians were forgotten, abandoned, ignored. Let me remind you of this world. In this world, you are entitled to 2 showers a week. The rest of the time, you're forced to lie in your own urine until someone can be found to shower you again. You give up work, you give up going out, you are too ashamed to see your friends. You are isolated and alone. In this world, if you're a child who needs a wheelchair, you will find the cost is not covered. Your parents hold cake stalls and raffles. They ask the local Rotary for help. But by the time the chair arrives, you've already grown out of it. In this world, if you have a child with autism or any other disability, you face a bewildering maze of fragmented services. You go to one funding body after another. You have so many appointments, so many assessments. You spend so much time filling out forms, on top, of course, of trying to care for your child alone, that you're exhausted. You give up trying to work. Australians with a disability and their families are currently held to ransom, having to accept anything that is offered, even if it is the wrong equipment or the wrong support that isn't at the right time of day and not doing the things that need to be done. They are beggars, and beggars have to accept anything that's dished out. This is the world that people with a disability and their families endure all day, every day, right now in Australia. In fact, the last great leap forward for people with a disability was 30 years ago, when we fought so hard to close the institutions that gave people life sentences, shutting them away from society from birth to death. We mostly won that battle for deinstitutionalisation, but we lost the fight for social and economic inclusion. So what has changed in the 2 years since I was here last? What has changed is hope. Where there was once despair, there is now hope. And this is because a new era has begun, an era that for the first time ever has all parts of the disability world working together for a common vision. The engine room of the new era is a powerful coalescing of people with a disability, carers, and disability service providers. This engine room is called the National Disability and Carers Alliance, and I would like to acknowledge the members of the Alliance from Carers Australia, the Australian Federation of Disability Organisations and National Disability Services. And from this alliance has come the Every Australian Counts campaign. Since January this year, the campaign has amassed almost 100,000 supporters from every part of the country and from all walks of life. It's a powerful grassroots movement of people who've put up their hand to say enough is enough and demand a fair go for people with a disability and their families. And Australia is the only country in the world to build an alliance of all those affected by disability, all united, all determined to wake Australia up and to ask for major reform. And now, for the first time, we are all optimistic. We're optimistic because after an exhaustive 18-month inquiry, the Productivity Commission has handed down their final report in just August this year. And by the way, this is the hard-nosed Productivity Commission, who aren't known for their bleeding hearts. And they recommended introducing a national disability insurance scheme for all Australians. Just 10 days after receiving the landmark report, the federal government announced that it would introduce the National Disability Insurance Scheme. And nine days after this announcement, all premiers and first ministers from around the country met at the Council of Australian Governments and all agreed to work together to implement the National Disability Insurance Scheme. Given the history of disagreements between federal and state governments, this was indeed an extraordinary commitment. And since that time, the states and territories have agreed to work with the federal government to speed up the full nationwide implementation, to reduce the rollout time from 7 years, as recommended by the Productivity Commission, to 6 years. To the people around the country who are in desperate need of support, this speeding up of the rollout is very welcome indeed. This is the quickest turnaround response of any government to a report of this nature. All governments in Australia have now decided together that we need to transform how we treat people with a disability and their families. And not only all governments, but all parties. In this often fractious political environment, the National Disability Insurance Scheme has received strong bipartisan support. Why this unprecedented level of support from all political parties and the rare state and federal cooperation? Because they all know that the system is broken and must be fixed. They know that people with disabilities and their families will not give up. They know that it is just plain wrong to allow this area of gross neglect to continue, and they also know that a national disability insurance scheme will add significantly to the productivity of Australia. The transformative potential of the National Disability Insurance Scheme is enormous, but it is at heart a simple idea. Number one, create a consistent and secure national pool of funds, and from these funds draw down the necessary support for people with a disability and their families. Number two, allow people with a disability and their families control to choose the services and supports that best suit them and their needs. Allow them the dignity that comes from control and choice. Three, create a system that is not only effective and efficient, but is flexible and responsive to individual needs. Four, build a system with the incentive to get people what they need when they need it, so that they can maximise their opportunities to participate fully in every aspect of Australian society. For example, home modifications and personal support and domestic help will be available straight away. This will mean that people will no longer be left to languish in hospital or sent to nursing homes or abandoned in respite care beds because their families can no longer cope. Wheelchairs and other equipment will be supplied as soon as they are needed. People with a disability will then be able to get an education, return to work, or get a job or keep a job. Early intervention will be just that, early and enough for every child with a disability who can benefit from it. Then all young children with a disability will be able to reach their potential and have every opportunity to participate in a full education so necessary for their future. Young people with disabilities will be like all other young people, able to make decisions about who they live with, where they live, how they live. They will be able to leave home and move to as independent an adult life as is possible. And so the fears of aged parents who are haunted by what will happen to their older adult child will finally be put to rest. The National Disability Insurance Scheme will allow families to return to being families. Mums and dads, brothers and sisters, partners, husbands and wives, who will of course still care, but the caring role will no longer dominate their lives. It will mean that mothers and fathers will no longer find their relationships fractured by the stress. People with disability will never again be seen as burdens on families. I know what a hurtful and divisive issue this has been. People with a disability hate that characterisation as burdens. It strikes at the very core of our being. And yet the reality is that this is the experience of carers when they are left to do everything with no help and no hope. Without support, the relentlessness is hard to bear. But the peace of mind which will come from the National Disability Insurance Scheme is not just for those who already have a disability. Like Medicare, it is for every Australian. Every Australian will be able to rest easy knowing that they are certain of reasonable care and support for them or their family member who may become disabled. This is important because disability can occur at any stage of life, from many causes, from birth, from sport, from cars, from falling off a ladder, from stroke, Parkinson's, MS and many other illnesses. This transformation of the landscape does, of course, come with a price tag. The Productivity Commission estimates that the system is underfunded by approximately half. That means an additional $6.5 billion will by the final rollout year of 2017. This is for an effective and sustainable system to meet the social and economic needs of the nation. The National Disability Insurance Scheme is an investment in the potential of people with a disability. By providing them with targeted and timely supports, many will be enabled to enter the workforce and so help meet the significant productivity challenges which face Australia. And by providing people with appropriate support, the National Disability Insurance Scheme will also allow families to participate fully in the economy and the community. Many new jobs will be created, new aids and equipment will be manufactured, new services will be developed. So it is for all of these reasons that the Productivity Commission concluded that the economic benefits of the National Disability Insurance Scheme far exceeds the costs. But in the end, this may not be the greatest benefit. The National Disability Insurance Scheme will mean that people with a disability will become fully citizens of Australia rather than objects of charity. They will be able to participate in the community, becoming neighbours, colleagues and friends. In the process, they will become people seen as worthy of investment, as Australians with potential, as valuable contributing citizens of this country. The National Disability Insurance Scheme means that Australians with disabilities in their families will move from begging to dignity. They will move from charity to human rights. Australia will leapfrog from being one of the worst OECD performers on disability into a leadership position. The National Disability Insurance Scheme is this generation's greatest reform, benefiting every Australian. Every Australian is a stakeholder in the development of the National Disability Insurance Scheme. Thank you.